Greetings, YouTubers. It is story time. It's actually storming outside, so if you hear thunder and lightning or see lightning, it's actually storming out. I think it's a good time to tell a story. So I grew up in Ireland, and in Ireland, we told lots of stories by the fireside. My grandparents, my fathers and my uncles and aunts, it was quite fascinating. Well, mostly the men told the stories. It was fascinating. So I have a story to tell. I lived in Ireland for a time. I lived in a small village, a tiny village called the village of Knock. And anywho, before I go into my story, this is my book of shadows. Yes. So any words that I forget that are not good words are remembered in my book of shadows. My book of shadows will remember those not nice words. Anyway, this is my story. So when living in the small village of Knock, my son attended a very small school in that village, and it was a very tiny village. But what's so impressive about the village of Knock is there's a very beautiful shrine there, Our Lady of Knock Shrine. It's a beautiful shrine. They also have a helicopter pad. Monsignor Moran, may he rest in peace, obtained or got that done where you could actually land a helicopter in the village of Knock. And it's a tiny village, but it's where Our Lady of Knock appeared, where our Blessed Mother is believed to have appeared. I was raised Roman Catholic, but I've gotten in touch with my ancestral roots, and aside from my psychic gifts, which come from my mother's side, mostly my mother's side, but also my father's side of the family, I consider myself a druidess. I do embrace Christianity, and I go to church and I pray because I do love the story of Jesus. I just have great disdain for modern Christianity, which is a watered-down Christianity and very cafeteria-style Christianity, and I just don't respect that. That's just me. But anyway, back to my story. So there's a bad word that my book of shadows will remember for all eternity. It's a naughty word, a very naughty word, about getting together and having illicit sex on the weekends. People do this. It's very occult-like in the village of Knock. The occult is alive and well in the village of Knock, shall we say? Oh yes, darling. The occult is alive and well in the village of Knock. Anywho, there's a clinic in the village of Knock, and sometimes I would go to the doctor as needed or bring my son to the doctor as needed for whatever ailed me. And it was a father-son doctor thingy over there. I won't mention their names for privacy purposes. They also had two secretaries with the same name. How Confucius! How very Chinese of them. Very Confucius of them, for those of you that are fans of the history of China and how subversive China can be. I've been to China. But anyway, I digress. Back to my story. So I had a neighbour in the village of Knock who was very meddlesome. Oh, a lot of meddling neighbours. I was invited to a witches' coven, but I don't join witches' covens. No, I don't. No, I don't either. No, neither do the cats of us, Marius. That's so odious. Anyway, she suggested that I get together with the son of the father, so it's father-son doctor situation. But that man was married with children of his own, and I just don't get involved with married men. I don't do that. You don't have to be Christian to know not to do that. Nitwits, that's just not a good idea, numbskulls. Just don't do it. Anyway, so she was suggesting I do that, and of course I had no interest in doing that. But I did speak to the doctor there about going to a conference in Ireland. It was the first conference of its kind on narcissism. Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Conference, Ireland, that happened in the year 2019, because that's when I was living in Ireland for a time, before I returned to the US of A. God bless America. I love America, because I can be myself in America, and it's A-okay. Anyway, this was going on in Ireland. And this lady here is a very special lady. She wrote a book called The Three Faces of Evil, which is the problem of diabolical narcissism. We all have a certain amount of narcissism. We like to look our best, etc. But she's talking about diabolical narcissism, the narcissism that's not good for you. It's signed by her too. Woo-hoo. So I suggested that he attend the conference, and he said that he would go, and it didn't concern me whether or not I saw him at the conference. That was not the purpose. I just suggested he go. So I went with my son to the conference, and we took the train, and this is a true story. It's weird, but true. So at the train station, there was a man in a homeless man costume. Now, I've volunteered at homeless shelters. I've been around the homeless, and sometimes the homeless sometimes do have a little odor to them. It's not their fault. You know, if they're homeless, they can't always help that situation. I really care about the homeless. So just let me tell you a couple of things about myself. I love charity. I care about the poor. I care about the homeless. I hate child abuse, hate child abusers. I hate abortion, and I hate stupid contraception and birth control. Nitwits. Anyway, just to let you know a little bit about me. So this man was wearing a very elaborate homeless man costume. There was no weird odor or anything to suggest that he was homeless otherwise. Oh, there goes the storm. Woohoo! I have a stormy temper. It suits my temperament. Anyway, we're getting so much needed rain. Thank you, God, for the rain. We need the rain. I like to thank God, who is our creator, and in thanking God, I thank Lucifer and everything else that was ever created by thanking God, who created everything. Anyway, he was in this elaborate costume, and he had a briefcase with him. Like, I've never seen a homeless person carrying a briefcase. Not that it hasn't happened or, isn't a thing. I've just never seen that happen. So I noticed that it was a very elaborate costume, but I recognized the eyes, I recognized the curly hair, and I recognized that he looked like that doctor that we went to. So my son and I both recognized him. I said, looks like that doctor. And I said, oh, maybe it's his brother, Maybe he's just mentally ill or something. But we're convinced that it was, well, at least I'm convinced, I'll speak for myself. I'm convinced it was that weirdo doctor. Like, I don't know what he was trying to do or what he was, it's very weird and very Harry Potter of him. It was just weird. Anyway, he stood there and observed us for a while. And my son and I both agreed not to say anything or object. We didn't mind him being there. He wasn't bothering us otherwise. So he eventually left. Well, when I returned to the village of Knock, I didn't pass any remarks or say anything about that incident because people would say I was crazy, cray-cray. So I wasn't about to do that. But I will tell you, that doctor wrote a letter. I got a copy of that letter from him later on, but he wrote a letter requesting that I have a mental health assessment done. And so I went ahead and went to one of the bigger hospitals in Ireland with my son and had a mental health assessment done. And I was found to be doing quite well, and I was okay. And I received a letter to that effect, which I gave to that doctor. But that doctor was a bully. He wasn't a nice person and not a safe person. And whatever he was up to, and that was at the time of the conference. So he must have gone to the conference. I don't know. I didn't see him there, and I didn't concern myself with trying to see him. There was a good crowd at the conference, so I didn't try to seek him out or anything, but apparently he sought me out wearing that weird costume. And that's a true story. That is a true story. It's almost like Tales from the Crypt. But he did write a very nice letter, because we had a dog that we were trying to bring from Ireland to America. So he wrote a very nice letter on our behalf so that we could bring the dog. Well, that was nice. That was kind, but not too kind, because you don't want to be too kind to a druidess, because we don't trust that. Anyway, thank you for listening, but that is a true story. Tales from the Crypt, really weird tales from Ireland. More coming. Thank you for listening.